Hello everybody and welcome to a season review of 2019 here on Race the Roof on Downforce Radio, the nation's motorsport station, with myself, content manager Alex Goldschmidt. A lot to talk about. We've got multiple categories: DTM, BTCC, TCR and Virgin Australia Supercars. First things first, we do have to send our best regards to our friends down under with everything that's going on with the Australian bushfires. And we know that it's a very difficult situation. So our thoughts and prayers are with them at this time. So without further ado, let me introduce my guests. First of all, he's the man that runs TCR Talk. He is, of course, the TCR guru, and he just so happens to be our TCR editor here on the nation's motorsport station. Hello, Phil Kinch. How are you, my friend?
Hello, Alex. Yes, not too bad. Nice and rested after a short breakaway and looking forward to a new season.
Indeed. And, we've got someone who's definitely been making some waves of his own. Recently just announced that he's joining GP Fans as their editor-in-chief, but just so happens to be not only our Virgin Australia Supercars editor, but also our communications manager, my fellow Essex friend, Mr. Sam Hall. Hi, Sam. How are you, mate?
Hello, Alex. All good, thank you. Very, very busy, but all good.
Good. Well, we're going to go through the roundups of the respective championships in terms of the standings. First of all, we'll go to DTM. Now, there was some big news that happened at the tail end of the season with the Super GT DTM Dream Race that happened at Fuji Speedway. And I must be completely honest, I wasn't at all surprised that Super GT decided to throw the smackdown at DTM, and this could provide a nice bit of entertainment going into 2020. But for DTM itself, René Haast, in just his third season with Audi Sport, took a second title, and it was an Audi 1-2 with Nico Müller running with his German teammates all the way through the majority of the season until René Haast secured the title with just one weekend to go at the Nürburgring. Marco Wittmann, also a two-time DTM champion, both in 2014 and 2016, rounded out the rostrum on the championship podium at the Hockenheimring in October this year. Mike Rockenfeller and Robin Fiennes rounded out the top five with Philipp Eng, Loic Duval, Jamie Green, the now departed Bruno Spengler, who's gone to IMSA for 2020 with Team RLL, and Jonathan Aberdeen, one of the two South Africans this past season, doing a great job for Team WRT alongside Pietro Fittipaldi, who now goes over to Super Formula for 2020. Also, in terms of the teams and the manufacturers' standings, the teams' standings was taken once again by Team Rosberg. Yes, you heard that surname correctly, run by former Formula One world champion Keke Rosberg. And I think that son Nico is definitely showing a clear interest, as he was there for the championship party with Team Rosberg when it was all said and done. And it was an Audi 1-2-3 in the manufacturers with Team AB Sportsline and Team Phoenix rounding out the top three with Team RMG, Team RMR, Team RBM, and WR Team Audi Sport, the first ever customer team for a very long time, finishing seventh in the standings with Aston Martin's R Motorsport Teams 1 and 2, rounding out the 9 strong teams running this year, 18 cars in total. And Audi won the Manufacturers' Championship by a considerable margin, and the reason being is that the points for the top 4 highest classified cars due to special dispensation, thanks to ITR and the DMSB. Audi won the championship with 1,132 points. BMW were on 550 and Aston Martin were on 49. So that really rounds out what's happened in DTM. The two winners, funny enough, it's the Super GT and DTM Dream races. The first race was won by Nick Cassidy in the Keeper's Tom LC500 as the Lexus now moves on and the Toyota Supra joins the Class 1 regulations for 2020. And if anyone might remember this name, Narain Karthikeyan took the win ahead of Marco Wittmann and Loic Duval in the final race of the season with the 4,563-metre circuit, providing great spectacle all the way through the weekend. Next up, we go to BTCC, and Andy Rouse's record has been equalled, none other by the one, the only, Mr. Colin Turkington, who secured his 4th successive title on the final weekend of the season at Brands Hatch. BMW took the constructors' title overall, with the team standings won by Halford's Yuasa. racing with both Matt Neal and Dan Camish doing their best. Rory Butcher took the Independence crown this year ahead of Josh Cook and Tom Chilton. Cook has come alive, now joining Chris Smiley at BTC Racing, so a great effort from that independent team. And also Cobra Sport, AMD, Auto Aid, RCIB Insurance, that's a mouthful and a half, won the team standings on 487 points, with BTC Racing on 458 and Team Shredded Wheat Racing with Gallagher, aka Motorbase, rounding out the top three with 431 points. The Jack Sears Trophy standings also had a double title winner this year in the form of Rory Butcher, ahead of Tom Oliphant from Team BMW, with Bobby Thompson from GKR Scaffolding with Autobrite Direct, and now for 2020, a Trade Price Cars Racing driver in one of the two Audi S3s. We'll get onto the news a little bit later on. And then last but by no means least, the forever forward standings, as Dunlop now exits the British Touring Car Championship to be replaced by Goodyear for the 2020 season, with Adam Morgan winning by just 5 points ahead of Matt Neal, with Aidan Moffat on 120. So that really rounds out what's happened in DTM and BTCC. So with that being said, I now hand over to my good friend, our TCR editor, Phil Kinch, to give us all the relevant specifications of what's happened in WTCR, TCR Europe, and TCR UK. Over to you, Phil.
Hello and welcome to the TCR section of Race the Roof's Tin Top Review. So, thank you very much, Alex, for your kind intro, and let's get on with the TCR side of things. So I'm looking at TCR UK, TCR Europe and WTCR during this segment, and we'll start off with TCR UK. Now, despite a small reduction in numbers, I think you could say, from the original season in 2018, 2019 still saw quite an exciting season of racing. Saw an exciting season where drivers were still fighting as hard as they possibly could, door handle to door handle, wing mirror to wing mirror, for every point that they could in the series. As was a season-long fight between what turned out to be two drivers. We did have originally three championship leaders, starting the year off with Carl Swift, who was leading the championship after the Alton Park rounds. Lewis Kent then took over from the Donington Park British GT support round onwards, and was still in the lead of the championship until the penultimate round at Brands Hatch, where James Turkington took over the lead and was in front at the final round of the year at Donington Park. Now, as well as TCR UK running with its various competitors, you also had Touring Car Trophy on track as well at each of the events, and like I said, with the exciting racing that took place despite the small grid numbers, you still had a spectacle that showed the fans that even for a fraction of the price of something like the BTCC, drivers and teams can still compete and push as hard as they wanted to secure title honours. Well, title honours in the end for TCR UK went to James Turkington. He became the 2019 Drivers' Champion after securing podium places in the Brands Hatch. Start again. The 2019 Drivers' title, where he took a brace of fourth place finishes, which was enough for him to be able to secure that title. However, Lewis Kent finished the year 5 points behind him in second place, and not to take anything away from Kent, he utterly dominated the season during the early part of the year, where he was taking race wins at Donington Park on the Grand Prix circuit, and also a double race win weekend at Croft as well. Behind Lewis, in third place in the championship, was Darryl Wilson in the bright green Vauxhall Astra, which I'm sure you can agree you wouldn't have missed at any of the events during the year. Darryl had a slow start to the year where he missed the first couple of rounds, but once he was up to speed with things, he was able to take pole position at the final rounds at Donington Park on the national circuit, and he was able to take 2 third places in the final races of the season as well. That secured his third place in the title chase. Nick Holstead was one of the debutants in the series, and despite not turning up until the British GT rounds at Donington Park, he went on to take his first pole position of the year at Brands Hatch in the Orange Motorsport Honda Civic, and proved that he was very capable of holding his own within the field, finishing 4th overall in the title chase. Adam Morgan, the BTCC regular, finished 5th overall in the championship, despite only racing at the Donington Park finale himself as teammate to James Turkington in the second Sicily-run Motorsport Cupra. Because he took 2 race wins and he took points to starting second on the race 1 grid, he was able to secure 5th place overall, with various drivers such as Carl Swift, Sonny Wong, Mark Wakefield, Stuart Lyons, Ollie Taylor and Richard Woods also competing as one-offs during the season. You had 11 drivers overall that scored points. In the team's classification, it was Sicily Motorsport who secured the team's title, taking over from West Coast Racing, who were the 2018 championships. And although they ran 2 cars during the year, the effort from Essex and Kent Motorsport is all the more impressive, as they finished 2nd overall and only running 1 car for Lewis Kent himself. DW Racing secured 3rd place overall, with Orange Motorsport and Maxima Motorsport tied for 4th place overall, with Stuart Lyons out in the TCR Cupra at Brands Hatch himself, and also showing that he still has the talent to be behind the wheel. HSG Motorsport raced one of the Cupra TCRs bought from Maxima Motorsport during the year. Endurance Financial was where Carl Swift took place at Alton Park, and he won the second race Carl Swift won the first race of the weekend, in fact of the season, at Alton Park, and that was enough to give him the championship lead at the time. Team Workhoff Motorsport finished 8th overall on the classification, and this was after there were various mechanical failures for Sonny Wong, who showed an impressive opening weekend at Alton Park. In the standings of the year for the TCR models, which TCR UK recognises, it was the Cupra TCR overall that won the Model of the Year standings, followed by the Hyundai of Lewis Kent, the Opel Astra of Darrell Wilson, the Honda TCR run by Nick Helsted, and finally the Volkswagen Golf that saw action at the opening round in Alton Park through Team Workhoff Motorsport. Following on from my TCR UK review, we move on to what is arguably the largest TCR series in the global TCR family, and that is TCR Europe, which saw grids of 30 plus cars at almost every single one of the 14 rounds that took place last year. We finally had a British champion, and a well-deserving champion, in the form of Josh Files, who was able to secure his first title in the last 2 years by taking 3 wins during the season and a further 5 podiums after reuniting with the Team Target competition outfit, whom he drove for during his TCR Germany title-winning years of 2016 and 2017. The British driver, however, suffered a massive setback during the season, where a huge crash in qualifying during the 2 Belgian rounds of TCR Europe saw that his Hyundai was virtually destroyed and almost undrivable. A mammoth effort by the Target competition team saw that the car was out for race 2, and Files secured several vitally important points that went towards his championship winning season. However, the British driver was chased hard by Frenchman Julien Brichet, with the French driver in his JSB Competition Peugeot 308 TCR taking 4 wins out of the season. It was Files' consistency that was able to get him the title. However, if the season was based on race wins alone, it would have been Brichet that would have been taking this. With the Frenchman pushing hard in his 308 TCR and showing that the Peugeot TCR model is definitely a car that can compete at European level. After a very quiet debut, it can be said, in WTCR in 2018, it showed once again that there is development behind the small Peugeot outfit, and there is more to come from that car. Debutant Santiago Urrutia also put to good use his year in TCR Europe, as he finished 3rd in the title standings, driving the Audi RS3 LMS run by the known WRT outfit. Urrutia, once he got to grips to the car, was able to perform admirably and get some very good point scores on the board, and it was towards the end of the year where his familiarity with the car came into play. He beat Andreas Beckmann, finished 4th in the driver's standings, and Beckmann is in his second year, it must be said, of TCR competition. After spending 2018 driving in TCR UK, STCC and a one-off in TCR Europe for the West Coast Racing Team, he moved over to join Team Target competition and drive a Hyundai, and Beckman took several pole positions during the season and finally took his on-track race win, which he was allowed to keep in Spain. Behind Beckman was another Hyundai driver and another debutant in the series, who was Nelson Pontitisi. Pontitisi was racing for Yvan Muller's M Racing outfit, running 2 Hyundais this year, and again the Frenchman was another driver having to adapt to how a TCR car works and also being able to put that performance into play. Gilles Magnus was another debutant in the series, and the Belgian driver was part of the RACB Come To You racing outfit, where he too was in an Audi RS3, and Magnus was able to put on a sterling performance on home turf as he took pole position for race 1 and also took the race 1 win in Belgium. This secured his standings as 6th overall at the end of the year. This put him ahead of experienced Frenchman Aurélien Comte, who was driving another Peugeot for the DG Sport Competition outfit, and from this, Comte was able to take a podium in the second race at Germany, which, along with consistent driving, was able to keep him inside the top 10 and be a title challenger for most of the year. Matto Homola, a former WTCR driver, finished 8th in the series, and his experience from WTCR and previous years of touring car racing put Homola well into the factor for the title race early on in the season after taking a race win at the first event of the year. However, mechanical difficulties and contact with other drivers ruled him out of title contention, and he finished a lowly 8th overall. Luca Engschler, a 4-time TCR title winner in 2019, finished 9th overall in the standings, and despite the fact that he suffered contact and from penalties himself, this doesn't show the talent and the racecraft that we know the young German to have. He was driving for the Mira Motorsport team for the first time this year, and he will be back next year showing a lot more talent and will well factor into the title hunt. The top 10 is completed by British driver Daniel Lloyd, who didn't actually join the series until after the first rounds were complete in Hungary. He joined in Germany at round 2, and from there Lloyd was able to get himself settled into the Brutal Fish Honda Racing team, and from there he ended the year with wins in Germany at Oschersleben and also in Spain, where he was able to factor in some good performances. In the team's championships standings for TCR Europe, it was Target Competition with their 5-car team outfit who ruled the roost and sealed off the team's titles side of things in Spain themselves, where they were officially awarded that honour. WRT finished second behind them with their 2-car outfit of Santiago Urrutia and Maxime Potti in the Volkswagen Golf. JSB Competition finished 3rd, thanks to the efforts of Julien Brichet solely, whilst Mira Motorsport finished 4th overall due to Luca Engschler and the early efforts of one Daniel Nage. M Racing completed the top 5 for the season. And now I'll move on to the standings for WTCR in 2019. Finally, we come to the review for the WTCR season, the 2019 FIA World Touring Car Cup, presented by Oscaro, and this saw the long overdue crowning of a title to the young Hungarian Norbert Mikelish, who came of age during the season. Mikelish, you may remember, almost secured the 2017 World Touring Car Championship title. However, he lost out at the very last round in Qatar to one Ted Bjork. Well, 2019 has been very much kinder to Mikelish, and he was able to secure those honours at the final rounds of the series in Malaysia, where we will find the commentary abilities of a certain Jake Sanson, having been involved during that weekend on Eurosport alongside Matt Neal. His season-long rival and also the man who dominated the early part of the season was Esteban Guerri in the all-Inco Munich Motorsport Honda Civic, and it was Guerri who, as I say, for most of the early season was looking as though the title was going his way, showing some impressive performances early on. However, it was the Asian leg of the series that seemed to let Guerri down, and he had to fight hard to stay within the title fight. Yvan Muller finished third overall in the title race, and the four-time world champion showed once again that his ability to adapt to a brand new car and within a team he knows is without doubt the best ability on the grid, and Muller was able to take the Lincoln Co. 03 TCR, a brand new TCR for 2019, to race wins and also podium finishes during the 2019 season. The Cyan Racing driver was well in the hunt for the title when it came to the last rounds. However, due to controversy with regards to team tactics, shall we say, from certain Hyundai driver teams... Due to the tactics of certain Hyundai drivers, namely one Nicky Katzberg in the remaining rounds, it seemed quite obvious to Muller that he was destined not to win the title, and finishing third in the second season after finishing second in 2018 is not a bad thing to do. Teammate Ted Bjork, who finished fourth overall in the title standings, has the accolade of being the first driver to take a Chinese-built TCR car to a race win after doing that during the opening weekend in Morocco back in April in 2019. Behind him, you'll find fellow Swedish compatriot Johan Kristoffersson, the former FIA World Rallycross double champion, who finished the year in fifth overall and also took the top rookie honours. Kristoffersson's ability shone through taking the Volkswagen Golf, which was a car that struggled all year to take good performances, where he was able to take 2 wins at least during the season, including a fantastic comeback drive during the final races of the year in Malaysia, and he is well deserving of finishing inside the top 5 of the standings. He finishes ahead of fellow debutant in the series Mikael Askenar, who joined the PWR racing outfit themselves, making their debut in WTCR last year. Askenar was credited with taking a win in Villarreal in Portugal, the same weekend that Tiago Monteiro was able to take a very emotional win himself there in front of the home crowd. And for Askenar, being a Spaniard on Portuguese turf, that's the closest thing he was going to get to a race win during 2019. Should he return in 2020, WTCR will go to Motorland Aragon, and he has the chance to take a fully fledged home victory for him. In 7th place in the title standings is Nesta Girolami, teammate to Esteban Guerri, and Girolami was a number of drivers alongside Guerri showing incredible form during the early season. And it almost looked as though Honda had 2 drivers who were capable of winning the title early on. However, as the season went onwards, Girolami lost form and ended up playing a support act to Guerri. Having gained a year of TCR experience now, should he return in 2020, he'll be one to watch. He finishes ahead of 8th place man and 2018 WTCR champion Gabriele Tarquini. The legendary Italian, I no longer say this as veteran, he's now a legendary Italian for the number of years he's been racing, fought hard in 2019 to retain his crown. However, he knew already with the super grid of 2019 and the talent of drivers taking part in WTCR how difficult that would be, and despite a strong start to the early season, he soon found himself losing out, and also was very critical to begin with for the balance of performance that he felt the Hyundai was wrongly being apportioned because of its performances previously. Tarquini would end up playing a supporting role to Michaelis at the end of the year, and he was instrumental in being able to help his teammates secure his first title. Rounding off the top 10, in 9th place is Jan Ehrliche, another of the Cyan Racing team drivers, taking the Lincoln Co. To some very good performances. He took podium position in Zandvoort in very controversial circumstances, it can be said, but the young Frenchman definitely has time on his side and is improving season over season. He will definitely be another one to look forward to being within the title shout in 2020, should he return with the Chinese-based team. Finally, in 10th place is Jean-Carl Vernet, and this alone shows how hard the Frenchman has worked during the 2019 season. Having secured the 2018 TCR Benelux title, Vernet has struggled, as have all Audi drivers in WTCR last year, and it was very obvious that the Audi RS3 was not on the same level of competition despite adjustments through balance of performance to try and get the car equal. that being said, to finish the year in 10th place overall in one of the strongest talented grids of 2019 speaks volumes. He was well in the fight for race wins when he was capable of doing it. Otherwise, the Frenchman was a very savvy driver in being able to secure points where he could take them. With that being said, where his interest will lie in 2020 will be different, as Audi have pulled support from their customer programs. However, if we do see Audis in the mix, it would be interesting to see if Vernet returns. So that's the complete top 10 of the FIA World Touring Car Cup presented by Oscaro from the 2019 season. Alex, thank you very much for allowing me to review the TCR series as I have done, and I'll hand over to Sam, who should now have our Supercars review.
Thank you, Phil. So yes, nice and quickly, we'll go through the Supercars results, because we all know there was only one winner in 2019, and that was, of course, Scott McLaughlin. McLaughlin had a record-breaking season. He took 17 wins from the first 13 wins even from the first 17 races of the season, made a total of 18 wins, which broke Craig Lowndes' record, which has stood for many years. And the only reason he didn't win all of the first 8 races was because of a very strange crash with Tickford Racing's Cam Waters ahead of race 3 at the Australian Grand Prix. This crash happened on the warm-up lap, and it left everyone a bit bemused, to be honest. So, yeah, McLaughlin absolutely dominated the season and only dropped off really once the season had been won. His closest challenge came from the 2 Red Bull Holden racing cars of Shane Van Gisbergen primarily and Jamie Whincup. From the midpoint onwards, they both began picking up results. Now, this was largely because the new Mustang, or new for 2019 Ford Mustang, had such a power advantage, or seemingly had a power advantage, that it kept getting pegged back, and then eventually the Holdens had a chance. Whether this will start on a more even footing for 2020, we're not sure. But it was good to see both of the Red Bull cars getting wins. Between them, they won all of the last 6 races of the year. So make of that as you will. Fabian Coulthard, Scott McLaughlin's teammate, he finished 4th in the year. Bit of a disappointing one for him. He only picked up 2 wins. And obviously there was a lot of controversy around Bathurst. And we'll get into that in my top 3 moments when we move on. Chaz Mostert, another Mustang, another Tickford Racing driver, finished 5th. David Reynolds, it was a disappointing year for him, finishing 6th for Erebus. They were, or the Penrite Racing Team even, they got rebranded, obviously. He didn't pick up a victory after what was comfortably his strongest ever season in the category last year, or 2018. And yeah, there's a lot that he can improve on for 2020, and hopefully he can, with better machinery under him this year, he can step forward back to where he really should be. Cam Waters finished 7th, Will Davison in another Tickford Mustang 8th, Nick Percat and Lee Holdsworth round out the top 10. And if I just look through the top 10, we've got almost all of the Mustangs inside the top 10. We've got McLaughlin, Coulthard, Mostert, Waters, Davison and Holdsworth. So 6 of the top 10 are Mustangs. And when you bear in mind that the majority of the grid are actually Holden Commodores, that shows just how much of an advantage those Mustangs actually had. Down the bottom of the order, Richie Stanaway, he's now left the championship for what seems like for good. He announced he retired from racing after a bit of a storm halfway through the season. And the best of the reserve drivers, or the drivers who only came in as co-drivers in the Endurance Championship, the Pertac Enduro Cup, was Craig Lowndes, unsurprisingly, with 3 wins from how many outings did he? 5 outings, and he had 3 wins. So that shows he has not lost his class at all. But I will now throw back to Alex Goldschmidt for the next segment of the podcast.
Yes, thank you very much, Sam. Thank you very much for welcome insights there. We're going to be as humanly possible. There is some breaking news that's just hit whilst we're recording this, and it is quite substantial. But we're going to go through some top 3 moments of the season. And luckily enough, whilst we've been recording this show, I've managed to grab Jake Sanson, who's currently at the TVKC Winter Series at PF International. And what I've asked everyone to do, and this is including myself, is we're going to give our top 3 moments. But there's going to be a little bit of a slight twist to this at the end, where I'm going to ask every single person, Phil, this includes you, I want you to name one standout magic moment of the year from the season. So Jake has commentated on FIA WTCR with Oscaro this season, both at Ningbo and also for the season finale this year. His 3 moments are as follows. The first one is Michael Azcona nudging Guerreri off at Sepang, which meant that Michelitz won the title. The second one, which was, I think, one of the most iconic moments, forget Jason Plato and Matt Neal's spat at Rockingham a few years ago. Let's take Ivan Muller lecturing the Eurosport audience on the bad driving of one Hyundai driver by the name of Nicky Katzberg after what happened in race 2, where Katzberg's car collided into the back of the Lynk & Co of the 4-time world champion and then promptly caught ablaze. And then we had the whole red flag situation, didn't we, Phil? So that was one to remember. And then the final one, Johan Kristoffersen. To win race 3, he went from 23rd to 2nd in just half a lap to win the race. So that's Jake's, excuse me, that's Jake's top 3. My top 3 is in just his 3rd season in the DTM, René Rast winning his 2nd title. The Super GT and DTM Dream Race finally happening after so much speculation. It had been on the card since around 2012, and in 2019 we got it. And we got to see the likes of Heikki Kovalainen, Jenson Button, Ronnie Quintarelli also joining the DTM season finale as wildcard entries over at Hockenheim. But the third one, and I have to give credit to Vincent Voss and the team at WRT, based in Boudor in Belgium, with a fantastic debut season, and that's only going to go on better to bigger and better things as both Jonathan and Pietro have now moved on. We'll get on to who their drivers are for 2020. Phil, your top 3 moments of the 2019 season, please.
So, Jake has stolen my thunder with WTCR.
I kind of thought that, really.
Yeah.
If we're being entirely honest, those TCR moments from Malaysia are probably going to trump anything any of us can come up with.
That's definitely true.
I'm going to disagree on this. So I've got a moment that for me had me in tears this year, and that is Tiago Monteiro's race 3 win, Villarreal in Portugal, in the final WTCR race for the European season. As many of you might know, obviously Tiago, years ago, there was a lot of doubt last year when he was able to Suzuki if he'd be back in a racing season. So that's one of my highlights, seeing him in his home race, stood up on the top of the podium. The crowd, I think almost every team member possible from every team, because WTCR is a family itself, everything, were right behind. That's one of my highlights. I will happily agree with Jake's as well. Sepang was one of those, definitely, that was a weekend full of highlights as a title decider. I'm also going to throw another one, which was Nesta Girolamo and Rob overtaking manoeuvres on the Nürburgring Nordschleife, which was also one of the FIA Racing of the Year. These guys are doing 150 plus door-to-door and touching each other and not on the Dottinger, which is as far as the fastest.
And of all the places, and of all the places, Phil, for it to happen, and it was, I can just remember Martin Haven just going absolutely ballistic on the microphone, all the way down as they were going all the way down the Dottinger. I have to give a shout out to Al Le Gui for doing a great job in the pit lane as always this year. But yeah, that was definitely a standout moment. Sam, your top 3.
Well, my top 3, one of them actually is from before the season even actually started. My first one is Garth Tander being replaced by Richie Stanaway at Gary Rogers Motorsport. No one saw this one coming, and then no one really at all saw that Tander was going to join Red Bull Holden Racing Team as a co-driver to Jamie Whincup, or not to Jamie Whincup, to Shane Van Gisbergen. And that was incredible, that lineup that they had over there. But Stanaway had finished 25th, which was second last of all the main game drivers the season before. By contrast, Tander was 13th and with loads more points. They said GRM said they were looking to the future by retaining James Golding, who had also had a difficult season. But yeah, Stanaway, it didn't really work at all. And evidently not, because GRM are now leaving the championship as a whole, which is a real shame. But Stanaway actually got dropped for the second race on the Gold Coast for the Sunday race for disciplinary reasons, where he didn't actually turn up for a signing session. And there was a bit of a social media outburst from Stanaway, which was all fun and games, or not, as it turned out. My second moment is also from the Gold Coast. Funnily enough, just mentioned it, and that's Scott McLaughlin crashing during qualifying. It's not so much the crash, which was horrible to watch. It was a huge crash, and the car was on its side skating down one of the tight walls, because it's obviously a street track on the Gold Coast. The moment really came when Shane Van Gisbergen, his title rival, pulled up behind the stricken car, stopped, got out of the car a la Ayrton Senna, ran along the track and helped his rival out of the car. Fair enough, it's a small gesture, but when you've still got cars flying alongside you, albeit yellow flag conditions, I mean, it's not something you see often. It's not something I'd advise people do often either, because it's a live racetrack. You're putting yourself in unnecessary danger, but it's one of them moments that does stick with you. But my number one moment of the season, and I wish I could say it was something to do with the racing, but it just isn't. It's all the controversy surrounding Shell V-Power and their Bathurst 1000 victory with Scott McLaughlin. First of all, it was the gift that kept going, because there were loads of safety cars towards the end of the race, and obviously safety cars change results. Fabian Coulthard slowed a ridiculous amount behind the safety car, which gave Scott McLaughlin a gap to have a pit stop that would guarantee him fuel to get to the end of the race and get out before anyone else came by. I think he came out of the pits maybe third, so it was judged almost to perfection. Obviously, that kind of gamesmanship in any motorsport is hugely illegal, and Coulthard got given a drive-through penalty, but that wasn't the end of things, as the championship then took retrospective action, gave them the biggest fine possible, $250,000, with 100,000 of that held back. And they were also docked 300 points in the team's championship. Now, like I say, this is the gift that keeps on giving, because it didn't even end there. When we got to Sandown for the next race, it came to light that the Shell V-Power team had breached engine regulations in qualifying for the Bathurst 1000. They had run with excessive valve lift throughout all of the qualifying sessions, which meant McLaughlin had more power. He could go quicker. And he had taken pole and then obviously converted it into the win. You could justifiably called for their disqualification from the race, and a lot of people did. And it wasn't seen as a heavy enough punishment that they were only handed a further $30,000 fine. Personally, I would have gone with the disqualification, but I do wear a few Holden jackets, so I'll take that one on the chin.
Which I see you wearing on a regular basis, my friend.
Yeah,
I think, what was it? I came round to see Sam just before Christmas. I was wearing my BMW Puma fleece, and then all of a sudden he wears his Red Bull Holden Australia jacket. No surprise there, then.
Yes, so I can't claim full impartiality, but I can agree with the calls for, you can't run overpower in qualifying and then not get a real punishment. It's one that won't go away. It will come up in conversation next year or this year when we get to Bathurst. It's one of those things that's just not going to go away, and it will hang over this championship win like anything. He deserves the championship title for all of his wins, but in a way, I hope McLaughlin wins at Bathurst this coming year, and there's nothing like this, so that he can't have it taken away. He can't be told, "Oh, you didn't have a real Bathurst win. You're not a real Bathurst champion." No. Do it fair, win it next year, and don't let anyone have a question about it.
All I'm going to say in response to that is, if anyone remembers when Mark Scaife and gentleman Jim Richards famously won in the Nissan GTR back in the early 90s, and I can't really say gentleman Jim's quote on it, but you know what I'm talking about, Sam. He said, "I've never seen this in all my career. I think you're a pack of fill in the blank, ladies and gentlemen, because it is an iconic moment in supercars history."
Yes.
We're going to go through the top magic moment from each respective person. Jake Sanson actually mentions one of your top three, Phil. Thiago Montero's win in Villarreal, with just the emotional outpour after that hefty accident back in testing in September 2000, a couple of years ago, when he went off due to a brake issue. And to see him come back is definitely a big thing. So that's one good magic moment there from Jake. Mine, well, you were there as well, Sam. Aston Martin leading its first ever home soil race, even though Paul di Resta was deemed to have jump-started it, for the Vantage DTM to lead for about 15 to 16 laps before the mandatory pit stop, I think was something that everyone was quite surprised about, but great to see that Paul di Resta managed to keep going and, had to serve a stop-go penalty, but it was by the by. Phil, your magic moment of 2020, my friend.
I'm never going to... What 2020 or 2019?
Well, 2019.
If you've got one from this year, that'll be impressive.
Oh, yeah, I'll see if I can let you know. No, I'm never going to forget being able to have watched 2 TCR UK races at Brands, the commentary tower. Ably watching our colleagues at Downforce Radio, Dave Goddard and Scott Woodwiss, going hell for leather on the microphones. And at the same time, just being able to watch it from such a viewpoint that, the guys, although it was a small field, the guys racing as they could on the Indy circuit. I'm never going to forget. And something I'm hoping to top in 2020.
And lastly, but by no means least, our supercars editor, Mr. Hall. What's your moment, mate? Can it be something apart from supercars, please?
Well, I could. I've got a couple of options. I could be a selfish one.
Yeah. Well,
I could go for Scott McLaughlin failing, or assuming he had failed to burst both tyres on his victory burnout at the season finale, but I'm not going with that. No, it can't really be anything other than the selfish one of getting to interview Mark Scaife at Autosport International last year.
That's the one I wanted to hear. And you got him to sign a particular model car as well, which I think is now worth a small fortune, mate. Yeah,
it probably is. If Craig Lowndes, by some miracle, is listening to this, then it's missing a signature. So please just drop me a message on Sam Hall Sport on any social media, and I'll get that sent over to you. No problem. If anyone knows Craig, like Lucy Payne, Lucy, can you send me his address, please? But no, meeting Mark Scaife was a unexpected pleasure, and it was only supposed to be a 5-minute interview, but I think it was end up being half an hour, 45 minutes.
Well, I remember having to edit it a little bit ready for Autosport special that we did last January, as the Autosport show is fast approaching, happening this coming week between the 9th and the 12th of January at the NEC. There is some news that I do need to let out of the bag. There's one big announcement we want to make, reference Downforce Radio and its continuing coverage of touring cars for 2020. But the biggest news has just landed. Mark Blundell has decided it's now time to let the cat out of the bag and sign off from my racing career. And this is verbatim from his Instagram account. For 30 years, I've given it all behind the wheel, met the most amazing people, and enjoyed moments I'll never forget. Last year's BTCC adventure was exactly that, and I love the challenge of getting back behind the wheel. Can't be too many granddads who have competed in the British Touring Car Championship. 2020 is a huge year ahead for all the drivers at MB Partners, along with the next stage of growth for the agency. And who knows, I might still be found in the BTCC paddock this year, one way or another. Too many people to thank along the way, but to my families and friends and partners and sponsors, a massive thank you. And a big thank you must go to all the fans who helped me keep my foot in when the going got tough. Cheers, MB. Thumbs up. And that's very classy from him. And I know everyone said it was going to be difficult. He knew that. I spoke to him after the first weekend at Brands, and he went, I'm still smiling, but he still persevered all the way through to the end.
I'll tell you what, Alex, one change that if I could make to the BTCC, it would be influenced by supercars, and it would be introducing an enduro either an enduro round or a segment of the championship. Probably on the Grand Prix circuit at Silverstone, because let's be honest, that's the only one really capable of doing it.
I firmly agree.
But you could. Who's to say that you wouldn't get Mark come back as a co-driver? I mean, it would be brilliant to see people like that and things like that happen. But unfortunately, I can't see Alan Gale changing the format of what is a proven success. Why should he, to be honest? But if I can make one change to really any touring car championship, that would probably be it.
I'll be honest, Sam, I can honestly say there's been drivers also mentioned that when they've had their end of year meetings and come out publicly on social media and say they've asked for it as well. There's lots of fans that want it. So I second you on that, Sam. If we have a way to get Mr. Gale to put it in place, that would be fun.
Yeah. But there's been some other news around the paddocks of touring car spectrum. DTM, the big news is out that 2012 DTM champion Bruno Spengler now moves over to IMSA for 2020, and apparently he's going to make a guest wildcard appearance to truly say goodbye to the DTM after 15 years with both Mercedes and BMW. Jake Hill's moved over to the AMD side of the garage now, as he's going to be racing in one of the two Honda Civics in 2020. Bobby Thompson joins Trade Price Cars Racing, fresh from Team Hard after 2 seasons. Of course, Mark Blundell's retirement. Lucas Auer now makes his return back to the DTM with BMW this time, as Sheldon van der Linde, Marco Wittmann, Timo Glock, and who is the fourth driver? Philip Eng still remain, but there is one spot still to be decided at BMW. The hot news is that potentially, I think it could be between Kubica, who's just been signed as the reserve driver for Alfa Romeo, or maybe even Britain's Nick Yellerley. That would be great to see him, as he's been running in GTs with BMW. I know that WTCR, Phil, we've had the big news that VW have pulled out, concentrating on full electric-powered motorsport. Sam, I don't know if there's anything in the supercar paddock that's going on, but really, there's one final bit of news, and we thought we'd let you know that Race the Roof continues into 2020. So I will still be hosting the show alongside a new podcast that I'll be doing. I'll be hosting the Rotax side of our new karting show called Send It, with myself powering the Rotax side, and Jake Sanson will be concentrating on everything else. So that's a new development for us here. But Sam, Phil, thank you very much for your time here on this special edition of the Race Roof here on Downforce Radio.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another bit of big news that broke during the last few weeks is that Andrew Jordan will be the third member of Team BMW UK in the 2020 Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. So that's it from us here at Race the Roof for the first edition of what looks to be quite a few in 2020. Don't forget to hit us on socials at Downforce Radio on Twitter, at Downforce Motorsport on Instagram. Type in Downforce Radio on the search engine for Facebook and head to our website, downforceracing.uk. Don't forget the Autosport International Show celebrates its 30th anniversary this coming weekend at the NEC in Birmingham from the 9th to the 12th of January, with the British Touring Car Championship having its customary season launch on the Thursday. That's it from me, Alex Goldschmidt, your host for Race the Roof. See you next time when we talk about racing with a roof on it. Race the Roof 2019 Season Review Edition, hosted by Alex Goldschmidt with special guests Phil Kinch and Sam Hall. Produced by Florian Schmeis, this has been a high-speed Autobahn production for Downforce Radio, the nation's motorsport station. Thank you for listening.